one. Hoorah. We've got 3 of our candidates here. Here are the 5 candidates running. We just heard today there is a write-in candidate, Marikar, and Natasha couldn't be here, but we've got Chris, Vincent, and Zachary. Come on up. Take your place up here in the front, guys.
Must be on house arrest or something. She doesn't show up anywhere.
Who's that? Natasha? Yeah, she just called us a day or so ago and said,
You're going to run for office.
all right, so I'll put their pictures back in a minute. Here's the way it's going to work. We'll go do opening remarks for 1.5 minutes for each of them. They can talk about themselves, whatever they want to talk about. Then we'll have questions. We gave them 3 or 4 questions to kind of tee it up so we wouldn't blast them away right away. So we gave them 3 or 4 questions. So we'll go through those. And then we've got other questions and we'll take questions from the audience. We gave you cards. You can write down questions. We'll gather those. Maybe you can gather those around the tables, see if how many we've got. And then if we have time, we'll just take live questions, if that's okay, guys, at the end with that. And then we'll have closing remarks for 2.5 minutes. It's not a debate of this. We're just trying to find out what it is. Audience rules, complete the question cards, open questions if we can, be respectful and polite. We don't want to turn in this into, something where somebody has a stroke or something. The last thing we want. Okay. All right, so we will start with one of our 4 questions that we gave the groups. Warehouses. What? Oh, introduce yourself first. I'm sorry, guys. You get your 1.5 minutes. I'm so excited. So you can use the mic there at the table. You can either stand where you are or sit and use the mic there. Pops right off. Is it on?
There we go.
Okay.
That's hot. Oh, how's everyone doing? Hi, glad to be here. I wasn't invited last time, but it's okay. Yeah, well, my name's Vincent Romo. I'm running for California State. Yeah, maybe we can turn that one off. Can I reclaim my time? All right, is that better? All right, so my name is Vincent Romo. I decided to run for California State Assembly because I was complaining so much to my wife. She said, why don't you just run for the Assembly? I'm a California history professor. I teach U.S. Constitution as well, among many other subjects. I'm highly involved in my local community. I'm a former Division I football player, and because of that, I recognize the value of sports within our youth. And one of the things this past baseball season I noticed is we don't have enough fields to practice on. Everyone wants to talk about crime and all of these things about adding more money to the police force. We need to really cut the problem off where it starts, and that's with the youth. So my whole goal here is to bring money to this district because this seat has only been used to virtue signal in a lot of ways, but also to apply more taxes, more fees, car registration fees, and all of those things. So my whole goal is to completely abolish the California income tax. And the way you do that as a constitutional historian of California is you use Article 2, Section 8 of the California Constitution, and you completely eliminate the California income tax. Because whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, I think we can all agree on that one principle right there. And we shouldn't be the ones budgeting. It should be the state. So I want to push it back, push government back to the local level, small government, big results.
Perfect. Okay. Yes, thank you for having me. My name is Zachary Consavo, and I'm also, running up to be your next assembly member. I was here last time. I'm a husband, a father, and a believer. And a real big reason that I'm running is because I feel like that we really lack a representative government, really in Riverside County, but in the state as a whole, because the state is an administrative state where the administrators actually, there's a law actually that overrules the elected officials and their laws. So we need to, rein them in the state level and also on the local level. I'm always reading about how the city council, even like one of the questions here was saying the city council is actually against putting the power lines underground. And even with the mission, the big development here by JPA the other day by the Air Force Base that finally got denied by the supervisors, that was all okayed by them as well. So we really need to rein them in and have a say. And also, I want to unite the district as well, past our political divisions. I'm not running as a Republican or a Democrat, so it does put me in a good position. And also with the other assembly members, I want to have a good relationship with them. I don't want to politicize them as Republicans or Democrats, and I'll pass any bill regardless. And I also want to do a tax audit of the entire state, so we can, and every county, city in the state and the entire state, and then we will redirect that money to public services and maybe cut some taxes.
All right, so the projector is a little like deer in headlights, so I'm going to stand over here so I can see myself think. All right, good evening. My name is Chris Schultz. I am the Democrat in the race for 8063. I am a husband of 30 plus years to my high school sweetheart. We have 3 sons together. I am a career public school educator, but I was raised in a Republican household on a working farm in southeastern Wyoming. So I spent the first half of my life behind the wheel of a John Deere tractor. I am an English teacher at both the high school and college levels, but I can weld you up something nice and fix your car in the parking lot if you have any problems on your way home. I'm also serving my 3rd term on my executive board for my local education association, and I'm on the bargaining team. Flip side of that, my wife and I have a large family childcare home out of our residence. So I also understand what it means to open the business liability insurance and have it be 33% higher. I understand what it means to pay statutory or payroll taxes. There are a lot of places where I come from both sides of the table. And so it gives me a nice broad appeal to voters across the district. I'm in this race because of a few things that haven't been addressed. Number one, affordability is still in crisis mode, and I'm an everyday average Californian, and I have the same response to the gas pump or to the electric bill that you do. Secondly, we need to start having some productive conversations around education instead of just continuation of culture wars. And then we need economic diversity, particularly in our areas, so that we're creating good jobs, so that people aren't living on the 15 and the 215, and so that we're creating a future where people can afford the housing we're building here, people can be vested members of their community, and we are creating a future that we want. Thank you.
Okay, our first question for the group, warehouse oversupply. I think I've got.
Yeah, so the warehouse problem is a huge problem. And if you go to Cal Access, you can look at where these other candidates get their money. I'll tell you, a lot of them are 2 sides of the same coin, taking money from lobbyists. And that's what California has become with the term limits, taking money from lobbyists, and these become lobbyist seats. So someone like myself who decides to run and completely self-finance their campaign, I am 100% against the warehouses because I deal with it. One of the biggest problems we have is the larger governments, in terms of the state government, is telling us what to do and how to operate. And in doing so, a lot of money comes from outside the district. And what's happening in terms of the warehouses, it's basically a tax write-off extraction of wealth. What they want to do is create these big giant warehouses that essentially lay empty. They use it as a tax write-off for 5 years, and then they pull out and leave an empty building. That needs to stop. And the only way to really stop that is without lobbyist money going up to Sacramento representing this seat, because that's exactly what you'll get. Go to Cal Access, please look that up. Another big problem with the warehouses is it's unsightly, right? If these are going to be productive warehouses, that's fine, but they also need to contribute to infrastructure. We can't be paying the toll roads. We can't be paying all of these other fees that make our lives more difficult, make our lives more expensive. And for what? For a warehouse to sit completely empty when we in my community don't have a community center. We in my community don't have a beautiful building like this for kids to come and practice karate. I tried to start a youth wrestling program. We have nowhere to put it. So my goal is to completely eliminate the lobbyist money and recalibrate the system into a more people-centric way of life, how California used to be.
Thank you. And yes, I'm completely against the warehouses right now. We have a complete overdevelopment, and a lot of that does have to do though with the city and the people that run the county, the city, and even the state not listening to the people's wishes. And during the council meetings, they do that a lot, and we have to hold them accountable. It's another thing where I'm going to say it again. We need to reverse the city manager system. Maybe after a city gets to 100,000 people in population, it can automatically be put up for a vote. And then we can have a strong mayor and good council members that actually put the city first in their area first. And also economic policies that I would be for is, like I said, stopping the warehouses. But right now, like Mr. Romo said, a lot are sitting empty. And also they're not offering us good jobs. So we could convert them to manufacturing hubs, which is something the federal government is trying to do anyway. And they're going to places like Texas or Delaware. They are coming back to America or reshoring, but they're not coming here. So we can get them to come here. Also, I've seen them convert warehouses to churches because it's hard to build churches in California because all the regulations. We could have churches there. We could even have, I know some people might be against it, but Riverside passed 80% to have marijuana dispensaries. Corona and Paris, they put them in by their warehouses. We could do that to keep them away from the people, and then it would give us $2 million a year in taxes, which we're not getting right now because for some reason the council does not want to do it. Thank you.
Stare right into that thing sitting there. All right, and I would advise you to take Mr. Romo's advice and do go check out Cal Access. I have a broad coalition of labor, union labor, building trades, education, folks who are backing me. I have not taken any money from corporate interests. I have not taken any money from real estate developers. I'm not taking money from the people who like to build those. I'm taking money from groups that represent everyday working Californians. What I will tell you is this: we have a problem in terms of oversaturation with warehousing and over-reliance on logistics here, especially with the tariffs and with the trade war that we have going on at the moment. We're going to see that trickle out from the ports. It's already been softening over the past year or so in terms of the industry itself. We've lost jobs. And so what we need to do is look out over the hump and say, what do we want here? Is that biotech? Is it tech? Is it whatever the case happens to be? We have to make that decision soon. We have to commit to that. And then we have to bring dollars back to the district to build infrastructure, whether that's water, whether that's electricity, whether that's transportation, transit, whatever the case is. We need the infrastructure so that we can commit to that, so that folks aren't out here living on the 15 and the 215. We're creating good jobs for folks in the community so they can afford those houses that we're building so that they can stay in the community, they can be vested members. And we're building the communities that we want, and we're supporting the education institutions, and those things are all piecing out together in a way that makes sense for our future, for those folks, our kids and our grandkids who come after us. Go for it. I'm already standing up.
Hello. Underground electric lines. Riverside residents have pushed for undergrounding electrical transmission lines like those proposed between Jurupa Valley and Riverside to reduce wildlife risk and improve community aesthetics, but face resistance from City Council and Southern California Edison due to high costs. As a state assembly candidate, would you support state funding or policies to facilitate undergrounding power lines in Riverside? And how would you address the cost and safety concerns to benefit residents?
We're in a weird spot with this one, and I talk about this a lot. We have some lofty goals in California, and sometimes the consumer gets caught in the crossfire. They are collateral damage. You have to understand that Edison's rate structure is return on asset, So theoretically, they don't make money on the electricity itself. They're passing along at cost. However, they do have their fingers in the cookie jar to the tune of about 7 cents per dollar that's spent, because they have they have generation facilities. So they're creating some of that power as well. And so when we start talking about putting a whole lot of money into the grid, and right now we're in this tough spot because Riverside needs a second transmission line, right? We're trying to keep up with some of those lofty mandates about going EV and all those sorts of 100% EV, and we don't have the infrastructure to do that at the moment. So we're caught in a space where with CEQA, there's a lot of permitting time, especially with the undergrounding. We need the power supply, the additional infrastructure now. And so we're kind of pulling against each other. If we're going to go with the cost to put it underground, guess whose pocket that's probably going to come out of? Edison's going to pass it along to us. Is it a bad idea? No, aesthetically, that's the right thing to do. In terms of fire maps, it's probably the right thing to do. It's kind of like going to the gas pump. If we drive all of the refineries out of the state and you have to pay $8 a gallon for that, can we do that? So as an assembly member, I am a guy who looks at incremental change and sustainable change and change that allows the consumer to survive the process. So I'm open to any number of solutions, but right now we're in that transition space that's tough to just say yes or no to anything in particular.
Thank you. Yes, and I fully support putting the lines underground. And it was something that caused the fires up north and Paradise. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken. So the cost actually might for the state or the city might be a lot at first, but it would actually in the long run help us, because the cost of having a huge wildfire, it'd be a lot less than that. And also maybe we could actually get insurance, because that could be a factor why we can't get insurance, because they won't want to insure us if we have above ground power lines that actually cause fires. So to me, it's common sense. And it's another reason why we need a strong mayor city, I believe. Also, we need to change the law. We literally have a law from 1911 that governs basically through the state our utilities. I'm not 100% sure the name of the law is like RPU or something, or RPUC. We need to reverse that law. The public voted that law in to reverse the corruption. But what happened is we're literally being run by like 2 private companies since 1911. One of them is the company here that's causing a lot of these fires and does not want to pay for them. So we need to reverse that law at the state level. So I would support that, and to fund them. I would actually support doing a tax audit of, like I said, of the whole entire state. And I think doing a tax audit and putting the money towards wildfire prevention, putting the lines underground, things like that, because they're going to administrators. We have people at the state level that make $3 million, like coaches and stuff, people that make $500,000, and they're supposed to be public servants.
So in California, we don't have a money problem. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. We also have a problem with negligence as well. So when you're talking about Southern California Edison in particular, we are paying higher rates, not because we aren't doing the right thing as consumers and putting more solar panels up and all of that stuff. We are paying the rates higher because of their negligence, because of fires and lawsuits. Billions of dollars worth of lawsuits are being paid, not by SoCal Edison, but by us. Because I'll tell you what, my wife's a financial advisor, and all of those SoCal Edison folks have really nice, fat $1 million pensions. They all retire with $1 million, which is great, good, great job. But at the same time, it comes at the cost of consumers. Our prices are not going down. Those lines need to be underground, because that mitigates risks and that lowers insurance costs, and all of those things help the average consumer. They are not interested in helping the average consumer. They've raised to NEM 3. If you guys know, your rates have gone up. And your rates will continue to go up. I wrote an article about this. You could read it on Substack, about all the rate increases that are coming our way, primarily because nobody is in Sacramento fighting for that. They have pipe dreams in terms of EV mandates that they'll never see because they're termed out. They want to run for president, meaning Gavin Newsom. And so he's using us as political pawns. And we are tired of paying the price. That's one of the primary reasons I ran. As a historian, I went to the Rogers estate in Pacific Palisades, and it broke my heart that it burned down. And it burned down not because they couldn't do it the right way, it's because of negligence. And I'm tired of the negligence in this government.
All right, next question. Party-centric politics. Riverside residents, like many Californians, are frustrated by partisan gridlock in Sacramento and across the nation, basically, where party line voting often overshadows local needs such as addressing Riverside's high tax burden or improving housing affordability. As a state assembly candidate, how will you prioritize Riverside's unique needs, such as reducing costs and improving infrastructure over party pressures? And if you're an independent, how will you influence policy in a Democrat-dominated legislature to benefit Riverside residents?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I'm next, right? We're going that way. Okay. Thank you. Yes, as an independent, I would actually come up with common sense policies that would actually I would be able to sway the Democratic majority to support them. I believe in terms of cost of living and the amount of taxes that we pay, like I keep mentioning, is tax audit. I believe if we did some sort of tax audit where we saw where everything was going and we could put that back into the community to cover our public services from there and other costs as well. Also, we need to make sure, let me check this question again. I'm so sorry. I'm losing my train of thought. And we need to get rid of regulation. I'm sorry about that. There's so much regulation. In terms of the infrastructure, we need to make sure that there's less regulation because we have so much regulation here and that would drive down cost. Now, I know there's a law that I heard here last time. I think it's called RENA that the state is forcing the cities to develop essentially, or they're going to charge them fees. I don't agree with that, but I believe if we had less regulation and more competition, it would drive down the cost as well. So we need to make sure we have less regulation. And as far as the infrastructure goes, we need to figure out how to get more of a housing supply out here, but also not have everything. So it's like right now it costs about $600,000 to get a house here or more. That's for the average person, which a millennial like me cannot afford. So we need to get that down. Thank you.
No, no.
All right. I'll take my turn. I think one of the things that Mr. Consalvo alluded to is local control. And I've talked to city councils about this, and you guys have exercised that in your voices with the March Joint Powers Authority and in a number of other places with the city council. And so ultimately, I'm never going to know your neighborhood like you know your neighborhood. The experts on Lake Elsinore are going to be the folks who live there, and ultimately they're duly elected officials. And so we need to make sure that we're listening to local voices. My job as an assembly member is to make sure that I'm passing policy that does us some good locally, and that I'm returning resources to the district in ways that local governments are telling me are going to be useful and helpful to them in doing what they need to do in the ways that they need to do it. Now, we do have a supermajority at the moment. As I told you before, I grew up in a Republican household. My mother was a Republican precinct committee woman. I've been a Democrat my whole life, but we do this weird thing where we sit down around the kitchen table and change each other's minds sometimes. I don't care where a good idea comes from. I just care that it's a good idea. And so ultimately, that's my approach. Whether you like it or not at the moment, we do have that supermajority. And so what it's going to take is that incremental change. It's going to take a guy who is a Democrat at the moment to have some common sense conversations, not care where the ideas are coming from, to affect the kind of change that you're looking for and get things done. In the past few years, what you've gotten is zero return on your investment for your assembly member. You've gotten no legislation and you've gotten no funds returned to the district. And so if you want something from this seat, I'm the guy you're going to need to send.
Well, I'll just say you've gotten zero return from a Democratic supermajority over the last 30 years, and that needs to change. So I'm not here about partisan politics at all. In fact, my own party hates me. I get more harassment from my own party because I'm running out of my own pocket. That's how much I believe in my message. And from day one, my campaign slogan was small government, big results, because the government gets in the way of a good thing, gets in the way of good business, gets in the way of housing shortage, it gets in the way of all of our problems. If we can move the government further away, only operating what they're supposed to operate, and the local government, you folks in this room, like Mr. Schultz said, know what your community needs more than some bureaucrat in Sacramento. And what they're trying to do as well is legislate curriculum, legislate fire protection, legislate all the money that is going up to the state and then pushing it back down, but with contingencies, saying we want to build giant housing units in neighborhoods that don't want them because we're the government. And so I'm here to completely disrupt the system within my own party. I'm a renegade, and in Sacramento as well. And I believe that there's nobody better that knows the California Constitution, the US Constitution, but also can stand on the floor and make a logical argument that would make every 80-20 issue our side and bring the government back to balance, because it's not about party, it's about balance. We need to move everything back towards the middle.
Homelessness and public safety. Riverside has seen a rise in homelessness with visible encampments along with Santa Ana River and increased concerns about public safety and cleanliness in neighborhoods. For a typical resident earning $85,000 and paying $2,000 or more in local utility fees, these issues impact quality of life and perceptions of value for their tax dollars. What state level policies would you advocate to address homelessness in Riverside, balancing compassionate solutions with public safety and community cleanliness? And how would you fund them without increasing taxes on middle income residents?
Again, we don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem. We need to get rid of some of the incentives that fuel this homeless industrial complex, because a lot of you probably know, my family's been here for over 125 years. This wasn't a problem until they started throwing money at the problem. And then it created a bigger problem and a bigger problem. And pretty soon, now we are basically seeing our tax dollars go towards things that don't matter to us, right? The homeless problem is a problem. There's compassionate ways to do that. But in terms of legislation, we need to undo what Reagan unfortunately did way back in the yesteryears before I was even born. But as a historian, I know that, 50% of homeless, I would even venture to say more, have mental health issues or a drug problem or a combination thereof. So we cannot continue to fuel the fire of these non-government organizations and quote unquote charities doing work that churches used to do on behalf of the community for free, right? And so we are fueling this. $30 billion in Los Angeles, $30 billion unaccounted for. Nobody knows where it went. Why? Because people are greasing their pockets and palms and everybody else, along with the party politicians and the lobbyists who are fueling the homeless industrial complex. I'll just leave you with one of my fellow Republicans who decided not to show up. They gave her city a $12.6 million grant. And in that grant, it helped 100 homeless people. That's $126,000 per a homeless person. How many kids could we have sent to college right here at UC Riverside for that money?
Yes, thank you. And this is a subject that I do feel very passionate about. I used to actually run a homeless ministry at a Nazarene church in Los Angeles in Koreatown. And I know we can do it from a compassionate way. Also, I do know there's there's different ways, mainly 3 ways people become homeless. Yes, it could be mental health, it could be drugs, or a combination of both, or even could be bad luck. The cost of living here, you could get divorced, you could lose your job, and that's it, you're on the streets, So we want to be careful with that as well and make sure we approach that area with compassion. And then also, I agree 100%. We need to make sure that the tax money for the homeless is going to the homeless. I mean, as much as Gavin Newsom, I might disagree with him. One thing he did say, he mentioned, remember, he didn't want to give money to the counties for the homeless. And then everyone cried to him and said he was being incompassionate. But the counties are not being held accountable and the cities are not being held accountable for where that money goes. So that's why, like I keep saying, if we did a tax audit, at least we could say, hey, this money, and honestly too, we need to at least get down to voting where our taxes go. So we could say, hey, we want this percentage of our taxes to go to the homeless. And we need to really make sure that we do it in a compassionate way. We also need to be able to, on a state level, figure out how we can provide them housing, and also how the cities can have more power to get rid of them from places where they're living, but without violating their constitutional rights. So we have to be careful with that. We have to offer them housing and not take their personal belongings because it's against the Constitution. And the ACLU will sue the city and the state. Thank you. Okay,
a couple of quick things on this one. if you're in terms of business owners and things like that, we want to talk about the fact, I think it's a 605 letter that allows law enforcement to actually be a help in terms of if they're trespassing on private property or business property. Housing first is always going to be the solution here. A dollar in prevention saves us $1.44 down the line. It's the same thing that we talk about with education and early childhood. If we spend money earlier, it costs us less later down the line, whether that's in incarceration or whether that's in trying to retrace our steps and fix our problems later. In terms of it not costing anymore, if we're trying to create more regional beds, if we're trying to create more long-term support options, if we're trying to create housing that we can actually get people into and they stay in and are stable in, we need to make sure that we're bringing some of those resources back here in a useful way. These guys are right in terms of only about 25 to 33%, depending on which of the programs you look at, have actually been spent from allocations that are pretty dang large over the past 4 years. So there's a lot of money that's obligated to fixing the homelessness problem, and we've only really spent 25 to 30% of that. So there is a deployment issue there on that one. The other piece of this is simply, with Prop 1, some of that money got pushed back up to the state, and so it's going to be a matter of making sure those resources come back here in a way that's useful, and that's going to take legislative advocacy. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the tax-based piece, and it didn't get out in any of these 4 questions, but I'm going to hope somebody put it on a card over there somewhere. Thank you. All right.
Take a question from the crowd here and modify it a little bit. We've seen at the local, city, county, state, and even the federal level, we're just spending all the time. So how are we going to stop all this spending since there's so many people that start crying all the time as soon as you want to cut something, that you're cutting something from them or from some group or from somewhere, and it's very hard to verify any of those claims. So how do you propose that we balance the state budget in all this?
One of the things we need to make sure we're doing, a lot of times when we get extra money, so we had some high earners make a lot of money, and it bumped us even up against the GAN limit not too long ago, and we ended up pushing money back out to education and back out to taxpayers. But we see shiny things, right? We get some extra money in and we're like, let's start something new. Let's commit to something new. And ultimately, we have to decide what is really important to us, and we need to make sure that we're meeting those commitments and that we have the resources to meet those commitments well into the future. And so the number one priority there is A, to make sure we're taking care of business before we create new places to spend money. B, there's got to be some accountability for some of that money in terms of, is it actually going where we said it did? Is it disappearing administratively, or is it making it to the people who need it? And then ultimately, we have a lot of volatility in our tax system. And so we have to decide where we want to be with that. So I'm going to back up for a minute and talk about that as well. We all want public services, right? If our houses are on fire, we want a fire truck to show up and somebody to try to put it out, right? That costs money. We want to make sure that we're always taking care of essential services. A couple of things that I do want to talk about there quickly in terms of those cuts is sometimes it's cutting at the state level. Sometimes we need to put money back in your pocket, right? And when we talk about that, I want to talk about the homeowners exemption, for instance. Anybody know how many thousands of dollars that is at the moment that you can claim off your property taxes? $7K, and I'm out of time again to talk about it. Sorry. All right, I believe it's one of these gentlemen.
Yes, thank you. And in terms of balancing the state budget, local and state spending, I know I sound like a broken record already, but we really need to get some type of audit so then we can figure out where that money's going, and then we redirect it to city services, and then from there, or county services as well. And then from there, we can cut. We can figure out, okay, well, this is going to a logo, or this is going to an unneeded service that's not for the public. And then we can actually cut those taxes. We're not going to be able to do that, like the question's implying, unless we truly find out where that money is going. And if I could get a bill passed as your assembly member, which I could believe I could do that with the Democratic support, considering that even Gavin Newsom's complained about where the money is going and we have no idea. So if we did a tax audit and we redirected the money, we found out where it's going, from there, we could say, okay, let's cut it. Let's cut X, Y, and Z. That's not going to public services, but we would include vital things. And also, in terms of taxes, I would like to see a us lower taxes on senior citizens as well. But I want to start, there's two bills that are already been written that I would also support, which would be an automatic tax cut. One would be for law enforcement retirees, and one would be for military retirees, which we're one of the only, I think the only state, maybe one more, that actually taxes military retirees. And then from there, we can say, okay, let's get rid of these taxes. And also all these measurements every year, they're always raising our taxes and we have no idea where they're going. So we got to figure that out too. Thank you.
I'll kind of go back to where I started. Well, abolish the income tax. How about that? Because like I tell my students, I always ask, who should be fighting, the people or the legislators? And everybody has this fictitious idea that the legislators should all just get along. No, no, no. They should be fighting each other to push down policy that comes back and that is beneficial to us. The problem is we haven't held our public officials accountable. And so by doing this, by eliminating the income tax, that puts the pressure back on them because we are the ones who have to make budget cuts, not them. And that's not how it should be because it's our money. This is our political seat. And quite frankly, what's been going on in terms of the overspending, it's just because they're children up there. They're children. They just love to just spend on whatever they want, shiny objects, like Mr. Schultz said. You know, the California state income tax has progressively gone up over the course of the last 50 or 60 years. Some of you folks probably know better than me. How did the state operate in the 70s when the UC system was free for California residents? Where did that money go? So all of this stuff that we talk about in terms of services, we still had fire trucks in the 60s and 70s. We still had police. We still had a much better fire mitigation efforts going on because they didn't have barriers like CEQA and all that. So what we need to do is localize government, get the big guys out of the picture and make them fight each other. No longer us fighting over who's a Democrat and who's a Republican.
Sir.
I'm going to play off another one from the audience. Infrastructure is a big thing, and so is utilities. Water has always been a battle in this state. From the north to the south, who gets the water from the Colorado River, from the Sacramento Delta? So my question is, do you support desalination plants along the coast to supply the coastal communities and then rely on the other water for the inland areas so we're not having to pump it all kinds of areas or and new basins? Because Sacramento has basically avoided the whole water thing for about 4 or 5 decades. The last time they approved a new basin was like 40 or 50 years ago. And so how do you feel about that and the water issue?
Yes, and this was actually brought to my attention last time. And yes, I feel like it's a very vital issue. I actually went to college for environmental studies and I had a concentration in sustainable agriculture. And my advisor there used to always joke with me, not joke, but he's very serious. He used to always say the next world war is going to be fought over water because at the time we were still in Iraq over the oil. So he would always tell us, don't worry, the next one's going to be over water. So water is vital. And we need to make sure that there's too much regulation within the state. And this probably goes back to the law from 100 years ago that we still have. And also the administrative state that we also have within the state. I believe that all water should be public and it's a public right. So the supplies we get also need to be public. We need to, and with the question about getting the water to turn the ocean water into fresh water to drink, I 100% agree with that. And it seems to me that the environmentalists, even though I went to school for environmental studies, I've found out that conservation is a lot less political than environmentalism, because when you try to build those, the environmentalists, they don't want it. They want to stop it. But then we're out here with no water, and we're getting our water from Colorado and up north. So yeah, we got to figure out where to get them from. We got to get the aqueduct working, all our aqueducts. And even though they get a lot of pollution from runoff and things like that, we got to figure out ways to clean those up and get more localized water and put it in the public's control.
Okay. A couple of things. Number one, and can you actually repeat the question one more time, just so I'm on it?
Yeah, it was about the water issue. We've been fighting over water for 100 years.
Okay.
We get our water from the north. We have to battle over it. The state wants to build more housing. Where are they going to get the water from it? One of the proposals is to put desalination plants along the coast to fit the coastal communities, and then the other water for the inland areas, so we're not pumping it over the mountains. And how do you feel about that and the water issue in general, since Sacramento hasn't addressed it for about 4 decades?
Right. And in Southern California, one way or the other, we end up importing a lot of our water, right? One of the things that's a little bit of a shame is that it's a very small fraction of the runoff that we actually are able to capture from when we do get wet seasons. And so we need to make sure that we're creating opportunities to hold on to that water. We're recharging our aquifers, and we're making sure we're making space for desalination, both on the coast, and we also know that we have to desalinate water, just because even if we're pulling it from underground, we're close enough to the coast that we have that problem, right? We have a salinization problem. So it's got to be a combination of things. And there was a fantastic presentation on that from Western Municipal Water District last time. So a lot of good things that they do have to say. But in Southern California, that's always going to be one of our infrastructure needs. And it's interesting because when we start talking about warehousing or housing, water's a big issue, right? You build a warehouse, what do you need? You build a lot of housing, you're going to need a lot of water, you need a lot of electricity, you need all those sorts of things. And so ultimately, yeah, I'm in favor of that, but I'm also in favor of making sure we do some other things locally in Southern California to capture resources that we're just letting go at the moment.
All right, so you're talking to somebody who studied at Cal State Northridge and has actually touched the documents of William Mulholland and his gravity-fed system that brings water down to Los Angeles. So I'm very well aware of the water issue and really how Southern California was shaped around this issue. We don't have as much of a water problem as you would think. Roughly a decade ago, we passed a proposition as citizens to invest in water storage. None of that has happened. None of that has happened. They have reallocated that money probably to homelessness or things that don't actually improve our lives as a community as a whole. In fact, there's billions of gallons of water that go out the Golden Gate. You can literally stand there. My brother lives in San Francisco. You can go out there and just watch billions and billions and billions of gallons just go into the ocean. So, I mean, in terms of a desalination plant, perhaps, but more importantly, we need to build the water storage that we voted on nearly a decade ago. And that money was already allocated. You can look that up. It's 100% true. No false facts here, because the truth is our government, the Democratic supermajority, has let us down. They do not have our priorities in mind. They have their priorities in mind. They are looking to make money. That's all they're there for. Most of these people are some of the least accomplished people that you'll ever meet, and they are determining our fate.
I'm going to throw this out, and then we'll give you 2.5 minutes to do your closing with it also. There seems to be, with Sacramento, with all the things that they're passing, forcing things on the local communities, our First Amendment rights seem to be getting chipped away. We're seeing it at the city level and so on, where they won't let us play our videos and little things like that. So if you can address that along with your closing remarks, you each get 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, we've seen a great erosion of our rights here in this state. And someone who's a constitutionalist and a constitutional scholar, I'm very big on the First Amendment, because without the First Amendment, we end up with what we have now, is basically a totalitarian government, in so many words, who have controlled the legislature, who have spent us into oblivion, who have doubled our state budget from 2003 to 2023. It literally doubled it. And the only time it's gone down was during COVID, which was a fake suppression, and also when Arnold Schwarzenegger was the last Republican governor. So what I think we need is just people who are honest people who are willing to self-finance their campaigns, people who believe in their ideals more than they believe in making money. Because to be quite honest with you, I've made my money. I actually will take a 40% pay cut by going to Sacramento, and I'm okay with that, because what I want for this state is for my children to be able to raise their children, and I can be close to my grandkids. Now, my kids are 11 and 7. I got a long way to go with that, but at the end of the day, that's what we all want. And a lot of what's going to happen here in Riverside County, where I grew up in the San Gabriel Valley, is there's going to be a lot of talent extraction going on because we aren't investing in our UC system. We aren't investing in our infrastructure, and we are fueling things like the homeless industrial complex. So we need to really recalibrate the government to where we're in control. And that means you as well. That means First Amendment, Second Amendment, they all mean the same. So for example, in the state assembly, or in the state Senate rather, they are passing a bill that will make it so you have to get a certification to have a gun, which I'm not really a gun guy, but that's the Second Amendment. So how about we apply that same logic that the Democrat supermajority is trying to apply to the Second Amendment to the First Amendment? Would you be okay with that? Would you all be okay with getting certified for your free speech? Or how about ladies in here? What about the 19th Amendment? You need to get certified to vote. That's what they're doing in the California legislature right now, and we need to stop it. We need to be loud. We need to be aggressive. My wife says, sometimes you're a little too aggressive on the campaign stuff. It's because I believe that we need to be aggressive and not just stand by and watch our state go by the wayside. So 100%, First Amendment, Second Amendment, all those amendments are in there for a reason. And if the country doesn't like that, then there's a process by which to change that. So none of those things have happened yet, so we need to enforce that federal law right here, right now.
Yes, thank you, thank you. Yes, I agree with a lot of what Mr. Romo here was saying, and I think it has gotten out of hand. Seeing that the Riverside City Council now wants to limit public speech is just ridiculous to me. That's supposed to be the place you go to speak to, to voice your opinion about what's going on in your community, and they're not even giving that to the people. Even like the laws keep getting passed. There's even one to cap the county supervisor's salaries that got passed by a majority, and that's up in a docket just sitting there. So we have to hold them accountable for not even passing laws that we voted for that would, help us. It would help balance our budget. And also I want to put up to a public vote, because what's happening is these planning commissions, these city councils, they're not listening to y'all either way. When you come in there and you say, hey, I don't want this development over there, I don't want this, they don't listen to you, and they do it anyway, and then it gets passed. So I want to see how we can actually put that up to a vote during to make sure that the majority of the community wants something. I don't know how we're going to do that, if it's going to be like a general election thing, or you guys come to the council meetings and or the planning commission meetings, and you have to have a majority of the citizens saying, yes, we want this. Or maybe we could have people vote digitally on these things, and you put your driver's license number in there, and just to make it, more cost effective and quicker. But we have to figure something out with that. And so that's a real big reason I ran, because out here in the Inland Empire, we have a city manager form of government. So you have no say. Your mayor, even if he cares, say you have a really good mayor, and I happen to work for the Moreno Valley Mayor and Council Office. I know that guy's a good guy, but if he wants to do something, his hands are tied. The city manager is going to come in and say, you can't do that. And that's in Riverside too. So that's unacceptable. And I want to see if we can have, like I said, have a law where after a city gets 100,000 people, automatically y'all can vote on if you want to change your form of government. And it doesn't even have to be a strong mayor city. There's other forms of government. And with that said, I'm not a Republican or a Democrat, so this is a short it's a short term for me, right? So you could take a chance on me, someone different for once, and see if there's going to be any real change. And then after, my term is up, it's short, you can go back to voting in, your normal Republican or Democrat, so that's it.
All right. I'm going to start with the First Amendment question. You have a right to say whatever you want, and I will defend your right to say that to my last breath. And if any of us up here aren't willing to do that, then we shouldn't be out here running for this seat in the first place. Secondly, I will tell you that, I'm out here just because I'm an everyday Californian, and some of the problems that we need solved have not been being solved. This isn't going to be, my life would be far easier to not do this, It's not going to change what I get paid. It would be far simpler to not do it, but it's too important. And I think one of the other things that we need to be careful about, yes, we can point fingers in one direction or the other all day long. You know, I spent part of my life in a Republican supermajority controlled state, a lot of the same problems. What we need to do is be willing to have some conversations. We need to be willing to give and take on all kinds of issues, and we need to not care where the ideas come from. We just need to make sure they are good ideas. We need to make sure that we can afford to live our daily lives. We need to make sure we're not having culture war conversations instead of talking about bettering educational outcomes. We need to make sure that we're actually diversifying economic development in this community and this area in a way that's going to benefit our kids and our grandkids, that's going to allow us to live here, that's going to allow us the lives that we want instead of just the survival that a lot of us have at the moment. Ultimately, yes, maybe our supermajority has failed on some fronts, right? And we need to have some new conversations about that. These gentlemen, I like going to forums that they're at because I like to listen to their ideas. And everywhere I go, I learn something new from every conversation I have with somebody. And I'm going to take that with me, and I'm going to continue to have those conversations. And I want you to remember that one of the things that is going to make a successful legislator is the ability to build coalitions, which is something that Mr. Staley struggled with. If you look at my coalitions that I have pulled together, we're talking about everyday Californians. When you talk about labor, the building trades, education, some of your local elected officials, I don't have a slew of the supermajority. I don't have 70 legislators who are backing me because that's not who I am. I am my own person. Sometimes that goes over well with people. Sometimes it doesn't sit well. But in the end, there's proof that I can run a successful campaign here. I can build a coalition on this front. And so in the legislature, I can do that same thing for you. And you can actually get a return on investment across this term and hopefully the next and beyond. Thank you.
This is a lot of work running for office. I have a lot of respect for anybody that does that. Guys, you get to keep the black pens in front of you. They're from Mission Grove Neighborhood Alliance, special antibacterial coating, special tip for your phone so you don't smudge it, and a light to find your way in Sacramento when you get there.
Very nice.
Can't do much better than that. So we want to thank you guys for coming. Folks have any questions for them? Follow up. Remember our next meetings. No, you can come up and talk to them.
I know that. And so I really appreciate you guys inviting us, giving us the opportunity to speak and exercise our First Amendment right. But also, we all have regular jobs. And so I really appreciate them coming out here and really just doing what we're supposed to do, right? Be civically engaged.
We'll be posting this